When I was 6 years old, an ice cream truck pulled up right in front of my house. The man inside told me he had something he wanted to show me, and I followed him into the truck. And as soon as I went in, the lights went out, and he began to unbuckle his belt. And then he started to laugh. And then I molested him. That is a paragraph from my upcoming children's book. It's gonna be called How to Out-Pedo the File. Anyway, throughout our childhood, we've all probably had at least one experience with a grown-ass man who's trying to touch you or do some weird shit to you. And in that situation, most people do one of two things. They either freeze up and then they get traumatized for the rest of their life, or they run away and try to call for help, in which case, the pedo is still gonna catch your ass because nowadays they be having mobility scooters. So if you're a cupcake and you don't want to be eaten by EDP, what do? The answer, simply put, is you gotta violate them harder than they violate you. You have to out-pedo the file. Chapter 1, Touch 'em Back. Now the first part of my book is all about how exactly you gotta surprise a child predator. And it's written from the perspective of a kid named Bling Bling, who is a world-renowned expert at being molested. And this is how it goes. One time when I was real young, I went to the library to look at comic books and shit. And it was a big ass library. Lots of people. And one dark night, I noticed a guy following me around the comic book section. So wherever I would go, he would come. I would be at the Batman section, then go over to the Wonder Woman section, and this motherfucker would come up right behind me each time. My first thought was, this guy, he's just a virgin. He's just trying to get his daily dose of 2D bitches. But then he began to come closer to me, and I could feel his mayonnaise and peanut butter breath softly whisper into my ear.
Hey kid, what book are you looking for? I think I can help you find it.
Oh, I'm looking for a Batman comic.
Which Batman comic then?
Me? Oh, I'm looking for that one Batman comic where Batman f***s a Batgirl on top of a rooftop at 2 a.m. in the morning. Do you have that one there?
That's my favorite comic book too. Here, come with me. I know exactly where to find it.
So I end up following him, and he guides me into one of those study rooms of the library. And then he just looks at me, and I'll look at him, and he looks at me, and I'll look at him, and I realize that I'm getting touched. So I'm thinking, why don't we just get this over with? So I jump on him and I grab his skinny little jeans and I start unzipping his pants and tearing off that shit to reveal his SpongeBob underwear. And I try to put my mouth on it, and then he starts screaming,
No, I don't consent to this.
And I was like,
it's not an option, honey bun.
and I start feeling up his bare backside and those fresh cheeks while he's screaming at the staff to come help him.
Oh my god! Officer! This kid is trying to sexually harass me!
And I found that extremely offensive. Harass? I was trying to sexually assault you. Big f***ing difference. And the lesson you take away from chapter 1 is that child predators are like spiders. They're more scared of you than you are of them. These are not like manly, strong individuals that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a child predator, this is someone who watches anime or someone who watches Big Bang Theory and his favorite character is young Sheldon. These are like virgin-y Redditors who never step out of their mother's basement, so they're extremely terrified of you.
I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake.
Well, I'm arguing that kids are actually more terrifying than adults. Like for example, look at stuff like Chucky from the movie Child's Play, or the girl from The Exorcist, and that $300,000 of unpaid child support you owe your obese baby mama. That stuff is way more terrifying than a child predator. So my advice to any kid who is about to get touched is embrace your inner horror. Get that part of you which is more scary than anything in the universe. I mean, kids are monsters. Like everyone has at least one 3-year-old cousin that if you give them a Barbie doll, man, they're gonna strip its clothes, they're gonna decapitate it, they're gonna chew on that shit for hours. They're gonna start chewing on that left titty like it's a fucking lollipop. Shit, by the time they're done with the Barbie doll, it don't even look like a woman no more. It'll turn from Barbie the supermodel to Barry the amputee. Like, hey, I'm sure that's a felony. That deserves like a life sentence in Monopoly jail. But the point is that those scary, terrifying monsters like their 3-year-old cousin are way more terrifying than child predators. Because if EDP tries to mess with your little cousin, man, ooh, he's gonna do the same shit to EDP that he did to Barbie. And by that I mean he's gonna rip off his left titty. That's what he's gonna do one bite and EDP will be running from the hills. Or, using his mobility scooter to go to the hills. Shit, that shit looked like a chocolate milk reservoir. EDP's titties could feed half of the kids in Africa. I guess what I'm trying to say is,
I dislike sexual assault as much as the next guy, but
you are much more of a threat to the predator than they are to you. I mean, the worst they can do is fuck you, which, it's pretty bad. It's pretty scarring, but it is temporary. The worst you can do to him is permanently damage him so bad that he starts streaming on Twitch and develops a horse kind of addiction.
I want to fuck a woman as a horse. None of this is just to be clear,
And then you can take it to the next step. You can hurt them more than physically. You can hurt them mentally. You can hurt them financially. And this is what Chapter 2 is about. Chapter 2 is called Pickpocketing a Predator. And it's written by John and Keys. And this is how it goes.
Now let me tell you how this works. So first we go on Omegle. Then for discussion topics, we type in young. Usually leads to a conversation with some random stranger on Omegle. And this conversation goes something like this. He starts saying M40. Now that's not a type of gun, that's his gender and then the age 40. We respond with something like F15. Not the jet, female 15 years old. And if he does anything else except close the conversation at that point, we know we have a predator on our hands. And then we talk with him a bit on Omegle and get his number, and over the next couple days, we start talking to him. And keep in mind, we're two grown-ass 17-year-olds pretending to be a girl, so he sometimes sends dick pics, right? And we would have to say, oh my gosh, that's the biggest dick I've ever seen. And meanwhile, he has a 3-inch micro penis. Or if they say something perverted like show me your ass, then we get a fat dude and pinch his stomach so it has the makings of an ass. And then we angle the camera just right so it has the perfect view. And he's actively stroking his shit thinking it's an ass. But in reality, it's just a couple of Big Macs and some large fries. Anyway, this goes on for a couple weeks, and with every conversation it intensifies until we have heaps of incriminating evidence and probably hundreds of pictures of this dude's shriveled up shrimp dick. And then we play our ace card. We offered to meet up with this guy, but we tell him we need an Uber ride, and that shit costs $450, and he has to Venmo us shit right now, or we're never gonna come to his place. Now, what type of Uber ride costs $450? Unless the hooker's name is Uber and she's riding you, there's no Uber ride in the world that costs $450. Now, at this point, the predator usually starts to get suspicious, and when they get suspicious, they also get more horny. So they start asking us questions like, are you real? Can I trust you, baby? Can you show me a picture of your face? This is where we motivate them to send the money. We send them a picture of a lemur pussy, or a real mashed up piece of orange that resembles a pussy. And this usually stokes their fantasy enough to send the money, which then we just pocket. Now you think we're done with our scam at this point, right? But no. We reveal the trap and send them one of our FBI warnings of distribution for unsafe content. And then we tell them, hey Clyde, we want $500 or we're gonna send all these screenshots and all these images and all that lemur pussy to your wife, your place of work, the police, and everyone. But usually this shit doesn't work and the pedo just ghosts us on his account and he tries to run. So then we go ahead with sending the screenshots. I remember we DM'd his wife on Facebook with the photos and the messages to expose that he had been doing this sort of stuff, you know, talking to underage girls. And the wife responded with like a paragraph. I'm so frustrated and heartbroken and disgusted that my husband wanks off to lemur pussy. And then we were like, ma'am, but how do you feel about your husband being a literal child predator? And then she was like, I didn't know he liked lemurs like that. I mean, that bitch was more mad that her husband bust loads to King Julian and Maurice than she was at her husband for being a literal child predator. That shit is crazy.
Now that is how you ruin a predator financially. But how do you do the ultimate deed? How do you get them in jail without getting frisky? Now that's where we get to chapter 3, locking up a pedo. Now this chapter is by far the most dangerous, the most risky, and also the most white, you know. That's another thing too. It's always the white dudes that be doing this. I ain't never seen no LaShawn or Daquan be attracted to minors. It's always some 50-something married white guy with a good life who decides to throw it away for some lemur pussy. But anyway, the last predator that I'll be talking about is my elementary school gym teacher. His name is Mr. Rollo. You can Google his ass. He was a gym teacher and a hockey coach. He was a real ass human being. So the backstory is that we knew Mr. Rollo was a predator. because every time we'd be doing basketball or volleyball, he would pretend to correct the girls' positions and postures, their arms and shit, but he would stay there for just a little too long, as if we was like staying there to sniff something. And since we started noticing that, we would take advantage of him. Like we would mess up our volleyball form on purpose, ask him to correct it, and as he's moving our arms, we would go, ugh. And Mr. Rolo was frightened. Because remember, Mr. Rolo was a pedo, but he was straight. Not that it makes it any better, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he was the type of guy that was more scared of being called gay than actually exposed to the predator. So naturally, instead of telling any of the teachers about the situation, we just kept on tormenting Mr. Rolo. And this, in my opinion, is what drove him over the edge. Because the way the cops caught Mr. Rolo was they caught him putting a phone at the back of the locker changing rooms in the girls' washroom. And the phone would just be sitting there recording all fucking day, watching them change, watching them put on their shorts. It recorded all of that shit. And look, man, Mr. Rolo, he was caught in possession of hundreds of videos of child porn, which is pretty bad, but they also caught him with hundreds of videos of TikTok dances, which is infinitely worse. So you might be wondering, since the cops did arrest his ass, how is this related to out-pedoing the file? Well, I'll tell you. So it started with a girl noticing the iPhone on top of the lockers. And a couple minutes into the gym class, pretty much everybody knew about it through gossip and shit. So then we start thinking, and we go up to the girls and we tell them, now look, don't tell anybody about this.
And of course you're thinking, why the fuck would you do that? Mr. Rolo's clearly a terrible person.
But hear me out, okay? We do nothing until gym classes ended and everyone goes back into the changing rooms, and so we, the guys, also go into the girls' changing rooms with them. And we bring this fat Filipino kid. Now his name was Wen, but that shit was spelled Nguyen. So we make Nguyen take his shirt off, and then he goes up to the camera and starts shaking his ass and farting at it. And Nguyen, man, he's so fat that his cheeks got cheeks. So Nguyen just starts dancing, doing jumping jacks, twerking, basically any sort of movement which involves his rolls and rolls of fat just bouncing around, and he's standing right close up to the camera while his sweaty Asian body is just leaking all of his precious sushi juices. Now Mr. Rolo got 10 minutes of footage of this fat Asian kid twerking on the camera, and then of course the girls reported him to the principal. They called the police, he was arrested and all that good stuff. And he ended up going to jail, but to this day, even in my deepest, darkest depression, there's one thought that cheers me up. In times of despair, I'm lying in my bed and I'm thinking about the courtroom at Mr. Rolo's trial. You got the lawyers, you got the defendant, Mr. Rolo, you got the judge, and the prosecutor is showing the evidence, and the first piece of tape he plays, a fat Filipino kid doing sit-ups. But anyway, to end the Mr. Rolo story, they did end up sending his ass to jail for possession of child pee. But they also charged him with bestiality because they saw the video of Nguyen. Anyway, like and subscribe and join the Discord if you don't want to end up like Mr. Rolo. And man, obviously that shit about Nguyen wasn't true, but like Mr. Rolo's a real ass person, and his ass did end up going to jail for that phone camera shit. That shit was weird as fuck, dog. And shout out to my man Just Potato who did the voice for the Predator.